Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas is back in the Pakistani capital Islamabad. Earlier, he was in Oman, where he held discussions on the US-Israeli war. Araghchi also had phone calls with Qatar's foreign minister, as well as Turkish, Saudi, and Egyptian officials. On Saturday, US President Donald Trump decided not to send his envoys to Pakistan, saying that a new peace proposal from Tehran was not good enough. Let's just remind you of what the sticking points between the US and Iran are right now. Tehran is demanding an end to what it calls aggression and targeted assassinations. It's also seeking guarantees against future attacks and reparations for war damages. Tehran is also calling for an end to fighting on all fronts, including those involving its allied groups. And it wants sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz recognized. Iran has rejected a 15-point list sent by President Trump in late March. US media say that list includes Iran dismantling its nuclear facilities and promising never to develop nuclear weapons. The US is also calling on Tehran to limit the range and number of ballistic missiles it has, to fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and end its support for regional allies. Let's speak now to Mark Kimmitt, who's a retired US general and a former Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs. General, it's good to see you again. So today we've seen Iran's foreign minister leave Islamabad. He went to Oman. While he was there, he spoke to the Sultan of Oman. He also had numerous calls with Qatar, Turkey, Saudi Arabia. Now he's back in Islamabad, while the US has cancelled sending its people to talk to him in Islamabad. Is this diplomacy still alive or drifting right now?
Well, first of all, we also have to make clear that the Americans were on the plane ready to come, and it was the Iranians that said, we know we told you that we were going to have some discussions in Islamabad. We're going to send our foreign minister out of country. So I think what we have here is just some typical diplomatic issues that come up, but they typically come up in private. The one thing that I would reproach both countries for, it's horrible, horrible message discipline. This shouldn't be worked out among us, inside the media, inside the public domain. When you have these, if you're truly interested in diplomacy, it's done in the back channels, in the background, and quietly.
Yeah, President Trump has been telling the US media on Sunday morning that we're going to do this by phone. He said, if Iran wants to negotiate, then they can call us. I mean, this, you think, doesn't suggest a breakdown here, just a repositioning. As I said, it's the back channels are active. There is something going on under the hood here.
Yeah, I think so. We're actually hearing about some unreported plans, unofficially reported plans, this 10-10 plan, where the Iranians would consider suspending enrichment for 10 years, and then after 10 years go back to 3.67 in return for removing the uranium, lifting of sanctions, and getting some money from the U.S. as well. But even these points that we're talking about, they're so ludicrous. They're obviously meant for public consumption, not for diplomatic negotiations.
With the Strait of Hormuz, the U.S. blockade still in place, and Iran very much in control of the neck of the Strait of Hormuz. How dangerous a moment is this? I mean, could one incident at sea undo all that's going on behind the scenes in the back channels?
Oh, certainly. I think all of us, for 20 years, back 20 years when I was working at CENTCOM as one of the planners, this issue of miscalculation always came up. This notion that we look at our militaries, the British military, the Qatari military, the U.S. military, is very, very command-centric. There's a lot of, particularly for the IRGC, a lot of latitude that's given to the low-level commanders. Imagine a low-level commander of, say, 15 speedboats saying, I think it's time for us to take some unilateral action on our own and go after some American ships in the ocean, in the Gulf, anywhere. And if there were some significant casualties, I think that would not simply restart the fighting, but it would incredibly intensify the fighting as well.
Can this kind of parallel track ever work? The sort of military pressure on the one hand, while following a path of diplomatic outreach. I mean, is that a recipe for success?
It's been done years and years. In fact, this is typically what, not simply this environment, but other environments. You fight your way to the negotiating table. Obviously, take a look at what's happened in Ukraine and Russia. It hasn't worked yet, but this notion of continuing to fight, and in the case of the Americans, viewing that they can compel the Iranians back to the negotiating table, I think has a history. It's not always a successful history, but we'll see if it works here.
So how do you break the stalemate? I mean, at some point, somebody is going to have to back down.
Well, I think that backing down is going to be done behind the scenes, not for public consumption. And there'll just be a gentle announcement. Okay, we've decided to have negotiations without poking fingers.
Okay, is anyone going to be able to walk away without losing face from this if a deal is eventually done?
Well, again, it doesn't matter if they lose face or not. They're going to both sell it as a victory for their side. So you're talking, this is just typical negotiations. There was compromise, and you can either see compromise as a victory because you made 9 of your 10 points. You can see it by losing face because you didn't get 10 out of 10.
General, it's always good to talk to you. Many thanks indeed for being with us once again. General Mark Kimmitt there.